Welcome to this Gcse Welsh Bacc student support screencast for the individual project. This video focuses on your self-evaluation. Before going through the self-evaluation success criteria, it's important to understand what exactly a self-evaluation is. For the individual project, the self-evaluation focuses on you personally. Not really about the research that's gone on for your individual project, but the process that you've gone through. So it is more focused on you talking about the skills you've developed rather than the outcomes of your project. When you're talking about the outcomes, that's in the conclusion. This is specifically a self-evaluation of how well you've done in this project and the skills you've developed or the skills you need to develop. Okay, so just running from the top, it needs to be written in full, clear sentences. Now, I've spoken about skills and the skills you've demonstrated or possibly you've been challenged with because you didn't have that skill set. You need to talk about, whenever you talk about a skill, you need to talk about it specifically. So for instance, if you're explaining that you've developed numeracy skills by analysing the graphs that you've collected during your research, you need to talk about how you did that, okay? How you learned how to analyse or how you demonstrated that you were able to analyse and interpret the graphs. Lots of students forget to reflect on both positives and negatives. They tend to just stick to what went well. It's just as important in this self-evaluation to look at where you were challenged or where things didn't go quite to plan. You're not going to get marked down for saying certain parts of the project didn't go well. It's the ability to reflect on your performance that is being marked here. You need to focus on the relevant skills challenged and developed. Okay, that will be explained later on in this video. And finally, focus on how to develop skills and how to improve. So I guess the second part of that is the most important, is if you identify, let's say, a skill you want to improve, you need to identify how you think you're going to improve that skill. So possibly giving really practical ways for you to develop. Okay, so the word count for the self-evaluation is as follows. Remember that the content needs to match up with those word counts. So an A star and an A, you're looking at 400 to 500 words. For a B, 250 to 400. For a C, 150 to 250. And for a pass, 100 words minimum. You need to include in your self-evaluation. Your self-evaluation should be divided into 4 parts, almost like 4 subheadings. The first one is planning. Now, when you're talking about planning, you're looking at the formulation of your question title, the generating of your aims and objectives, and your planning and selection of your primary and secondary research methods. Remember that the planning is not the actual research being done, it's the planning before that research, before that secondary research, before that primary research is done. The next part is the implementing. So this is the process of going through your primary research and your secondary research, and probably as well then your referencing and footnoting, or your use of footnotes. The third part is completing. So when we're talking about completing, that's your conclusion, your source evaluation, and parts such as editing and proofreading that a project like this needs to go through. And then finally, future improvements. What would you do differently next time you had to complete an academic project like this? Because what you've got to remember is the process of this individual project is virtually the same as a dissertation that students complete in university in year 3. So all of the skills you've developed here, you will be coming across again, certainly if you go to university. So for your self-evaluation, you need to look at what skills you need to be talking about in those 4 titles that we just went through, that being planning, implementing, completing, and future improvements. So numeracy is definitely one of the skills you need to be commenting on. And just an example, the kind of numeracy skills that you have been challenged with is interpreting and analysing graphs and data. That could also be tables. So there is a lot of numeracy skills being tested right the way through this project, certainly when you're looking at your primary research and your secondary research. So if you were talking about numeracy, it would probably be in the implementing part of the self-evaluation that you would talk about it. Literacy, it's all the way through. Okay, you are communicating your ideas and your findings constantly. So in all aspects, planning, implementing, completing, and future improvements, okay, literacy plays a big part. But also you've got interpreting and analysing information. Remember, that's just as important as analysing data. Okay, data is obviously working with numbers, stats, and graphs. Information is working with large pieces of text and articles and reports. Drawing conclusions, proofreading, and editing. There are lots of literacy skills that are being tested throughout this individual project. Digital literacy, obviously if you've done a questionnaire, Google Forms is a significant digital skill that you have tested and implemented. Research strategies such as searching for your information, that could be using Google Search and also Google Advanced Search, locating PDFs and using those documents effectively, using correct websites. And then I guess it's planning and organising. So essentially this is you meeting deadlines, your own personal deadlines, and as well as the deadlines set by ourselves as a school. And also how you feel the planning of your project has gone. Has it been smooth? Have you come across lots of issues? Would have you done something differently in your planning? If you had put more time into your planning, would certain parts of the project run smoothly? I think with all of these, what's really important is that you speak specifically about the skill. Don't just say, I developed numeracy because I interpreted and analysed graphs. Okay, talk about a particular graph that you had to analyse and how you did it. Okay, you don't necessarily need to be talking about the data there, but you're just talking about the process of how you analyse a graph. Okay, and that goes for all of those 4 skills. And obviously there are other skills you could talk about. What I've done is I've just broken it down into 4 for you to look at. I hope that has been helpful for you writing your self-evaluation. Thanks for watching.